All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chocolate Life Podcast. I'm your host, AJ Jones, and once again, we have Chaplain K with us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad I
Yes,
could get on this week.
yes, we experienced some technical difficulties, and I do apologize for that.
That happens. So I said we're learning as we go.
Yes, yes, yes. And so we have a very, very good show this week. Very, very good title. And Chaplain K, take it away.
Well, I want our audience from the different parts of not only the United States, but wherever you're listening from. What we're trying to do is to establish a brigade. In other words, how do we prepare ourselves? And one of the ways that AJ and I have been talking about this week is becoming aware, not just looking at things, but becoming aware of ourselves, being, in that state of mind for ourselves. And if we're in a state of mind for ourselves, we also have to be aware of some of the things around us and doing a gut check, if you can call it that, on ourselves. So therefore, when we see stuff happening, and I'm going to give some examples in just a moment, but I just want to set the framework that we as individual and as a collective group must become more aware of how this oil machine or this machine, how well oiled it is, that we call the whiteness mindset or white supremacy, or however you want to call it. I want to interject that it's a spiritual dynamic that's playing out. Wherever you are, if you notice how your media tries to tell you how to think about situations. And I'm going to use the Palestine and Israel territory conflict to help us to see that now we're always a target. And if we're not aware that we're always a target, meaning that the melanin in our skin is always a target. And for more than 20 years, I guess I never looked at it that way because I grew up around people that look like me. So therefore, that was not something I needed to focus on. Everybody in the community loved the children. Imagine that, because now it seems like people don't love children, or they trying real hard to make their children to be something that they're not, or you don't have a community that look just like you. If you're in the United States, if you're in the diaspora, or if you're on the continent, there's a better chance for you to have people look like you. But at the same time, and my experience working with people from the diaspora and the continent, specifically the continent, I have people who work in a profession, the healthcare profession, who said their government is corrupt. Well, newsflash, our government is corrupt. And really, that's what we have to start focusing on. And I think we've been focusing a lot on individuals instead of looking at the government as an entity. All the research has shown us for the past 3 years now since George Floyd that blackness, and I want to frame it like that. Blackness is under attack. The United States was set up on anti-blackness. And whenever the Europeans who are occupy, because they are the occupiers, so they're teaching Israel really how to occupy. I don't think the world is looking at it through those lenses, but Israel has learned everything that they do from European. Am I giving them a pass? Absolutely not. but their behavior is that of their colonizers. And now they have become the whiteness in the conflict between themselves and the indigenous people, the Palestinians, because that is their ancestral homeland. But these are people who they themselves, when they were in Europe, they were blackness. Does that make sense to anybody out there? If you do, just put it in the chat and say yes. Because they were the blackness, okay? In other words, they lived in ghettos. They became the target of lies. They became the target of killing. And they did like Black people do in the United States. They also became sellouts. So if we're going to be honest, and we're going to talk about the Clarence Thomases and the Tim Scotts and the Kamala Harris, who they acquiesced to the power structure, because we in a white supremacy regime. But the world is ran by white supremacy because the world was colonized. If it wasn't colonized by Britain, it was colonized by what we call the United States, which is the divided states of America. And with that, it created a mindset that you view everything through a white lens. So we got to actually retrain our brain and see whether or not, if we have to do a gut check and see if we're operating still in that whiteness mindset, because that has destroyed us. And it also has taught us bad habits such as we are so down on each other, but at the same time, we're not as down on our government. And our government is doing what it has always done. When it wants to support, in this case, the United States is supporting Israel. And somehow they figured if they ran the narrative and if they give it to their white media talking heads, whether it's CNN, whether it's MSNBC, whether it's CBS, ABC, Fox, Newsmax, and wherever you are in the world, if you're not listening to a podcast, my hunch is, unless you're on the continent where some of these younger leaders are saying no more to the puppet government, that the news you see is saying Israel has the right to defend itself. That sounds good if you're not a Palestinian, which if you're telling me they have a right to defend themselves, then why don't I have a right to defend myself? Same thing with when the colonizers came here. They made sure we couldn't defend ourselves because Black people didn't have guns when the colonizers first got here. Everybody that's over here who's called Black didn't come across a ship. And I'm going to have to say that over and over until people start doing their own research. Because we are under the mindset that everybody came across a ship and they had to struggle. Well, there were brown-skinned people already here that they call Indians. When they got transferred from the south to the north, from the north to the south, or for what they call the Caribbean or what they call South America, they moved them around and therefore people could not communicate. And you were on the system where you couldn't learn to read or write. So we're talking about separating and being conditioned, being indoctrinated. So it's going to take us a while to rewire our own brain. Because there's something that if our parents didn't do it for us and then provide a space for us, a nurturing space, it's going to be a little bit difficult. So that is the reason why we're hoping that we can form a community where If you're the only voice in your community, then be that voice, because that's the voice you're looking for to be the leadership. And then if you know somebody else who think like you, then you got to start collaborating and then tune in, because as I stated, the idea is, how do we do this from the grassroots? Our government is not going to save us, just like the Palestinian government, sorry, it's not going to save them. It is their land, but it's been occupied for over 70 years. That's the way it was here with our ancestors. It was their land, but once the Europeans got here, set up camp, and made their own forms of government and everything else, you see this. So they are the roadmap to Israel. Israel is not doing anything the United States have not done and still doing. So therefore, whiteness have a mindset that it's very haughty and think it's God. I'm going to say that again. Whiteness has a mindset, or the mindset that thinks it's God. Whatever it says, that's what goes. And it tries to tell the whole community what you can and what you cannot say, or how you can think about things. In other words, if you say it, most likely, if people have things that's bothering them, they want to say it to somebody. That's what counseling is about. So you can kind of process, and you can get some of these thoughts that's going on in your head out, so people of like mind can help you to actually disseminate. Does this make sense? And am I by myself? Because we have a lot of thoughts, and thoughts have a way of either shaping us to be a person to be secure. And if we don't have a community, we can become very insecure. So sometimes our thoughts can get the best of us, and we never talk about them. And if you're not an extrovert, then you don't talk anyways. If you're an introvert, most of your life is spent just being with you. So all of these dynamics are playing out in us every day. So we have to find ways to make them work. And I'm going to say this, and I want you guys to look this person up. For those of you who've never heard of Sitting Bull, look up Sitting Bull. Because Sitting Bull, if he and the Sioux and the Dakotas were here today, not those that are on the reservations that they're on now. I'm talking about Sitting Bull and the people who stood up against Custer. Okay, Custer was a general, and you don't hear that taught in any school. So therefore, we have to start teaching ourselves. Sitting Bull went up against the government. That's the equivalent, kind of, sort of, because I don't really know Hamas's backstory, so I'm not going to really put Hamas in with Sitting Bull. I'm just using Sitting Bull as an analogy because he was trying to help his people. We know that. I can't say that about Hamas. Maybe somebody else can tell me better. But Hamas remind me of gang activity who come into your community and wreak havoc and just destroy the community, or what they call black on black crime. But notice how nobody ever say white on white crime, Asian on Asian crime, Hispanic on Hispanic crime. It's always black on black crime, as if we breathing air is the problem in society and nobody else has that problem. Therefore, we should stop saying black on black crime. And if anybody say that to you, you should have some pushback on it. If you're not going to talk, and my statement is, if you're not going to talk about Asian on Asian crime, white people on white people crime. I mean, we just saw that up in Maine. This man went in and killed people. Nobody said there was, domestic terrorism. or all of the above. Only thing they said was mental illness is the issue now. So every time a white person go on a shooting spree, now you have to check and see if you can put them under the box of mental illness. That becomes their new escape hatch. Just like the church is not talking right now because they're cowards. And yes, I said that because I've been in what they call the church my whole life until I decide, no, I'm done. As I told somebody earlier this week, being a part of the church to me is like a parents buying booties. And for you guys who don't know what booties are, they're baby shoes. That means somebody has to buy them for you and put them on the baby's feet. But eventually baby outgrow them and the baby don't want to wear booties. Baby may decide not to even wear shoes, but because now the baby has grown up and make choices. Baby is no longer a baby, so therefore baby has no more use for booties. That's the same way I feel about the church. The church does everything that's on a very infantile basis. It gives you rituals, but it never addresses the issues at hand that people deal with daily. They may talk about a few people in the church. It used to be the people who now have rights that everybody put in the category of homosexuals. But homosexuals or the woman who got pregnant, okay? Never that the man got the woman pregnant, but the woman got pregnant. So it's always a group that you can punch down on. Never ask the young person who may be experiencing homosexuality or transgender or whatever they may be, what happened in your life? Some people want to practice that, and so be it. If that's what they want to practice, so be it. But some people do not. So how do we allow space? And we don't have churches to do that. So of course, the churches cannot talk about the racism that exists in the church. So therefore, the church, the national and international churches are pretty much silent as we watch genocide and apartheid take place once again. Because these are the tenets of the white mindset, or the mindset that operate in whiteness. In other words, I'm the rule, I'm the power, and this is what I say, and this is what goes. That's the same thing the Dutch did when they went over to South Africa. That's the same thing the Europeans did when they came over here that they call America. That's the same thing the Zionists, and I hope we get to the point that we separate Zionists or Israelis from the people who practice Judaism. Because Judaism is one of the three traditions that people practice in that area that they call the Middle East. Zionism is pretty much the same thing that any nationalist will practice. And when I say nationalist, I mean a nationalist. And you can put whatever name on there, because that's what they're doing. They want to set up their own state. They want to do whatever they want to do. And they want to be the top, and everybody else are subservient. So the same thing that these people learn and experience over in Germany. Well, let's just say the Soviet, because we say Germany, but it was really the fall of the empire of the Austrian or the Hungarian. We use certain language to really talk about things that happened a long time ago and don't have a proper framework, like the Zionists. The Zionists will let you call them Jews all day, and they'll let The white media say you're practicing anti-Semitism if you say anything that goes against what they're doing. But if you notice, if you guys been paying attention to the news, the Orthodox Jews who practice Judaism are pretty much against their government too. And that's how we have to learn how to separate. Same way we separate here. We're not for Donald Trump. We're not for Joe Biden. We're not for Congress, because none of these entities are for us. Eventually, the Palestinians will say for themselves. Hamas was never for them. Hamas been in control for 16 years. And you have to ask yourself the question, how is it that Hamas been in control 16 years and they've never done anything really for the people? They've just been the catalyst for destruction. They got their money from Israel, or they're set up from Israel. It has come out. They set this in place to keep Gaza and to keep the West Bank separated. The same way people do with gangs. They let gangs operate in our cities. And I'm talking about us right now, not talking about the gangs who set up the United States. If you guys ever seen the gangs of New York, all of those were white gangs. They came out of Europe. And the gangs are the same thing that set up what we're looking at in our Congress. All of these people are gangs. They pay each other off to carry out whatever policies they want. It has nothing to do with morality or what's right or what's wrong. What's wrong is they want to dictate to Black people what we can and cannot have. Well, we don't have to participate, as my nephew said, in their shenanigans. We don't. But we can learn how to support each other and learn to build our own, so we can educate ourselves for what's going to happen after whiteness or white supremacy falls. Because it's falling, and it's going to fall. The United States and that place they call Israel is going to fall because they are so out of step with the consciousness and the mindset of regular people around the world, regardless if they're deficient in their melanin or not. They're saying enough is enough. I mean, we even see that with Russia and Ukraine. Somehow Ukraine can fight for their rights. And Ukraine has weapons. Okay? Palestinians don't have weapons. And most of these are children. We have to continue to say that this is a genocide. This is the same thing that happened in South Africa. This is the same thing that happened in all of the Black townships in 1919 and before and after in 1919. Same thing happened in what we call Wall Street in 1921. Same thing that happened in Rosewood, Florida. So it has continued. Same thing that happened when the United States allowed a bomb to be dropped in Philadelphia, and I think it was 1976 or 80 or something like that, on this group, this Black group that was practicing indigenous teachings and principles for their children. But this is what's going on now. So they are a model to see what whiteness look like. This is whiteness. Even though Palestinians probably will never consider themselves to be Blackness, which is to say we come from, for me, Blackness is meaning, for me, it means that we are the original melanated people. I don't care where we are on this earth. We come from the soil. We are Aboriginal all around this world. And we have been separated from each other, and we have been indoctrinated And we've claimed everybody else's identity but our own. It's a whole lot easier for me to say I'm aboriginal to the earth, meaning I am connected to my ancestry on this part of the land. But before they came here, they came from the cradle of civilization. I know who my ancestors are, at least 5 generations back on both sides. So therefore, I'm okay with being just an Aboriginal person who understand these dynamics that are playing out right now. But I want us to stay focused. I'm hoping we do, so we can learn how to build a community where we're focusing on what's next. Because that's the question. What's next? Because white supremacy is going to fall. United States can't keep propping up every war. That's how white supremacy have always worked. War after war. And the audience, the first person who decided that we were not human was the people who called themselves the church. How about that? I'm going to let you sit with that for a moment. So all of the ideas of saying, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that, the church, the Catholic Church, okay, which means universal. That's what Catholic means.
Universal church.
And it started in Europe. Yes, we use all of these, the universal church as they see it. Let me put it like that. The Western church, because the actual idea of church started in Corinth. And Corinth church itself started with what you call Malachites, which were the people who occupied the area that we now call either Egypt, Abyssinia, Kemet, any of those names. They were still melanated people. And now we got people so separated from the history of humanity until everybody is clinging to some micro idea of it identity. I'm this, I'm that. And none of it equals to bringing community. Everybody wants to hedge their bet to see what they can use people. Because if that was not true, then the continent will have more support.
Right.
And that's one thing I learned about the 6-Day War when I was studying it. The United States had no intentions ever to support the continent, because the continent has always been the gravy train for Europe and America. So therefore, melanated people can act like you got some type of allegiance or alliance with European mindset or whiteness mindset. That's never going to work. We got to stand our own ground, and we have to stand on our own principles, and we have to talk about what our elders taught us and our ancestors. We have to get back to learning who were our ancestors. Because if we really believe in the spirit of spirituality that works within us, then until we all know our own power, we are just spinning our wheels. And with that, I'll yield the floor.
Oh, it's almost like it's just, okay. The timing and how you ended that. I have a couple of questions. Okay. Why do melanated people choose the whiteness mindset?
There are a lot of nuances to that question. If you have been taught this from your parents and it was taught to them from their parents, that's kind of hard for a person to just throw it away, because now they have to rebuild trust in something. Because my hunch is people trust their parents, and their parents trust their parents. Even if you didn't like them, you trust what they told you. So if you saw them operating a certain way, you believe them. And I'm going to use my own family for an example. My mom's parents were indigenous, so therefore, her father, there were certain things that he operated under, and he taught her, and taught them, rather, taught his whole family. But at the same time, my mom went to the school in the community, and at that time, which I didn't know, schools only went to 8th grade, and that was even for white people. Because schools were only set up for people to learn how to read whatever the factories, because that's pretty much what schools were set up in the United States for. It was not set up to educate people. And I mean, even the white people. Black people have always taught their children anyways, and that's a story for another day. But the point is, you have to see where the root is. And then if this is something that's not your experience, and you just want to move away from it, because let me use another way. Maybe it is your experience, but you want to move away from it. Or you just have to find like minds to help you to move away from that principle, because it's not being helpful. And you see different things because we got more communication. So everybody have access to see just whatever you learn. You don't have to stay there. And just because our families taught us things, we don't have to hold on to it forever. They taught us what they knew, and that's it.
Right.
They didn't have it all figured out either.
And I'm gonna.
So if we give ourselves grace and give other people grace, I think that transition will be a whole lot smoother. Does that help?
Yes. And the reason why I was going to piggyback on what you just said, because this is like me making the choice to go to Jackson State instead of going to Nebraska or Northwestern University or any one of those schools that I applied to and got into. Like, I believe no matter what HBCU it was, but I ultimately chose Jackson State. But me going there gave me the opportunity to, okay, my thinking is a little bit different from everybody that's at this school. Why is that? Bam! Majority of them went to all black schools. That's number one. Number two, my schools were diverse, yet, up until I got to Kenwood, my schools, most of the schools I went to were diverse, but majority white. But Kenwood at the time was.
But could I interject in there?
Yes.
Because, I'm listening to the word you use, and you say diverse. And when I hear the word diverse, I'm still wondering, so what history did they teach?
I didn't even
and it's
look
not
at
just
that.
for you, but for anybody. It's like, well, what history did they teach? Because we use these words that really don't have legitimate meaning, because we still learn whiteness in our schools.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
Go ahead.
And, and then I would say definitely my first year in that first semester, I was doing a lot of reprogramming how I saw my classmates who went to majority black schools or who had been around HBCUs their whole life via their parents being HBCU grads and different things like that. So once I was in that, and was living in that and understood it and was around it, okay, cool. And then that first semester of my sophomore year, it was more along the lines of me kind of coming into my own with what I had recently learned.
So what I hear is that you were being very aware of the dynamics that were playing out in you.
Yes.
Well, and that's good reflection. And that is what we all must do if we're going to grow beyond the very basics that we learned when we left our parents' home. Because the world is moving quite fast, and if the only thing we have learned, um, I'll use TV, has come from not only just the TV, but the 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 I don't know. I guess I'm so separated from the young what young people see and do. I would have to use the because, and I'll use Beyonce because she just did a concert all around the world, and it seemed as though everybody. I don't know if they just wanted to get out and just have some fun because they've been locked up, and she and what's it, little Taylor Swift, the young lady, and they sold out. And that's another conversation because they tried to pit those two women against each other. But everybody got out and they went to this concert. But at the same time, I'm looking at it, and I have to look at it from a person who work in healthcare and work with mental illness and work to help people make discoveries of their lives and do differently if they want to make changes. It's fine if that's what you're spending $200 and $300 on to go and hear this young woman sing and
Ooh,
have a good time. But
can
at
I
the same
chime in?
time,
Can
when
I
you
chime
finish
in
that,
for a second?
sure.
Okay, so check this out. You said, people were paying 2, 3. Now, here's the killing part about them tickets. All right. For some crazy reason, these diehard Beyonce, the Beehive and the Tay Tays, whatever Taylor Swift call her fans.
The Swifties.
Oh, the Swifty, the Beehive and the Swifties. Check this out. When the tour was first announced, those tickets were going for as much as $2,000 a ticket. And a lot of people paid that price for whatever date they were coming to that city.
Okay, so I have a question, and I just use that because I don't know what these tickets cost. Because I'm like I said, they are not in my they're not in my preview of what I would go see if I was going to go to a show. So I just use that. I don't know what people pay for these tickets. So $2,000 to go to a concert. So is that
Yes,
what we're doing now?
that's that. Well, with those particular artists, that's what's being done. Like as soon as those concert dates were announced, you know, now I don't know what the original markup was, but as soon as now they have so when soon as a report comes out that an artist is doing a tour of some type, there's already a pre-market markup of what the tickets are going to be. But the day everything came out, like I'm talking like before, I don't know what the pre-market price for those tickets were going to be, but as the day of and after, them tickets was going for at $2,000 a pop. And so I would say some person even sold their tickets for double that just so
Well,
they
I
could
mean,
just so they could pay for another concert or whatever. But
and I only say that using that for an illustration as far as being aware that if this is how you're getting your knowledge, then what are you learning? Now, if I'm getting entertainment, then hey, they are superb. But and we use those two people. Whereas Taylor Swift used her concerts, and some of these politicians did not like that. Now, as long as she was up there shaking her rump, they would have been okay. But she used her concert to register people to vote. And she was getting more people to register to vote for people in her age group. And of course, they don't want to see these politicians that's doing the stuff that they're doing. So they made a big thing about that. So that goes back to this mindset. We're in control. We tell you what to think. We tell you what you can and can't do. So it's still a dictatorship at the core. Now, as long as you can swing from one of those rafters that they have at their concert, they're okay with that because they don't mind by people spending their money to be entertained. Same way with I would say the same way with the football. Now, the young men who going into football, they are learning in college now since Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders has changed the game, and now all of the white coaches who make millions of dollars, by the way. That's why I said we have to be aware that whatever is happening in this world, it still comes back to make sure we do not get economically sound and we do not come together to gain our own control of our own destiny. But we're going to do this.
Goodness. You hit something
What?
right there. Okay, you remember I've sent you a video of Godfrey going off during an interview. And he was basically talking about how back in the 60s, Muhammad Ali said, we should have our own state. And the person who was interviewing him said, well, why do you guys need your own state? You guys don't want us here. And he was like, no, that's not true. He was like, no. He was like, you don't want us here. You don't want us in your schools. You don't want us to live next to you. And then when we say we want to go, you don't want us to leave. And then Godfrey went on to say, anytime.
Well, because we
Oh, and Godfrey went on to say, anytime Black people talk about we need our own money so we can be autonomously buy on our own, and then everybody wants to throw a fit and get scared when we talk about leaving.
Okay, but that's what happened with the Zionists. Okay, they weren't wanted, but they're not. I would have to say that they're not as smart as Black people still. Okay. We're not trying to quote unquote, we just want to do us. In other words, leave us alone. We're not trying to take over nobody's territory. That's a white supremacy mindset. Israel, not only did they go over, and all you guys out there listening, do your own work on, and don't let any of the media and none of these people try to tell you how this is supposed to play out or how it happened. Do your own research. 1 hour is not enough time for us to cover every freaking thing that's happening because so many things are happening at one time in this country and around the world. But do your own homework. Find out for yourself. Find out truth. It's enough information out there. Al Jazeera does wonderful documentaries, and you can learn stuff from Palestinian voices and Israeli voices with old documents that they have actually put together. And you can learn this story quite well on your own. You don't have to have none of these politicians from the United States and around the world tell you anything. Because if they're telling you something, trust me, it has a dollar attached. And we got to learn how to master our own destination and stop giving away our own greatness. Our greatness is within us. It's not anywhere else. It's in us. And we make things happen when nobody else can. That is why I'm getting back to the Deion Sanders. That's why they're jealous. And man has always had self-confidence. And he taught his sons how to have self-confidence. And now that everybody is seen to be dogpiling on not only his sons, but the whole team. He has won more games for that school than they've won, I guess, in what, 15 years?
No, 25.
Oh, okay. Well, he's already earned his money, but his sons and he knew how to make money even before they came to Colorado. So what they're doing is doing what they were doing when it was at Jackson State. They're not quote unquote just now doing this. This is what they've always done. But when white people see us making money and making move, they get bent out of shape because they are no longer going to have that cash cow that they've had.
Let me jump in on that. So I just recently saw an article. No, I saw this article yesterday morning. So Tommy Tuber, and I think I might have texted you this information. Tommy Tuberville and Joe Manchin are trying to come up with a bill to take Pell Grant away from scholarship athletes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are. But Tommy Tuberville, like I said, that whiteness mindset has destroyed the military and set them back. And now you have people, one guy has already gone to the hospital and had some type of medical emergency.
Yeah, general had
they
a
didn't
heart
say
attack.
what it was. Well, but some more generals going to have heart attacks because and I don't understand, how is it that the president and the Senate is allowing this to happen? And nobody's pushing back on one redneck from Florida who operates as if he lives in Alabama. And he talks about the military as if they're a football team. No, these are people that are security force. This is not a game. This is life. They fight to make sure you stay.
You don't
they stay safe. They're the ones who do that.
You don't play the military.
And so this half brain supposedly wannabe coach and trying to tell all of these people who have actually kept the United States safe. And somehow, like I said, this is the arrogance of that white mindset.
And so I actually was looking at what he was saying and doing to the military. So this man is going far as, okay, so when I say senior officers, I'm talking lieutenant colonel and up, lieutenant colonels and generals. This man is somehow found a way to block promotions.
He's blocking it because he's saying these people cannot, he's holding it up until they take out the bill. Take out of the their request where people go and have abortions because he is so against abortion. So now you're trying to tell a military woman what she can and can't do when the colonels can't tell her what she can and can't do. That is that paternalistic, I say so idea of running an entire government, not only a government, but he just stepped way over his bound with this mentality to be a part of this
he's out of his depth.
Banana Republic of a Congress. They're a joke. They are a joke. And that's another reason why we have to come together, because we have to put people in who look like us, who has the community at heart, not trying to pad their pockets, i.e. some of these mayors, such as the mayor down in
Montgomery,
Alabama, who allowed the people in Montgomery, and he made the statement where he just needs 15% of the white votes, and he can be mayor, and he is not concerned about black people. We have to be able to get rid of people like that, because that's a whiteness mindset. In other words, I don't have to be concerned about the whole citizen, especially you people who are at the bottom. Same way with the guy up in Chicago who decided to allow all of these illegals up there And now the citizenry is saying no more. So everybody around this country are deciding for themselves. They're not waiting on these politicians and the Democratic Party to tell them you got to vote. Why do we need to vote when people are not even citizens getting better benefits than we are? I mean, I moved to Chicago too. Somebody give me $9,000 for 6 months to pay on my rent. Or Eric Adams, who allowed all those people come into New York. So they have gotten their payoffs, and they have thrown the community under the bus, and now the community is saying, you sound just like them.
Yep.
As one of the city aldermen said today in Chicago, I fear for the people who come over here, and I would like for them to have certain things, but I care more for my own people first. And that's what we have to do. We have to stand 10 toes down and say, we are for us. We've been trying to hold up a banner for everybody else for so long. We've forgotten to take care of ourselves. And we must learn how to take care of ourselves. Let's learn how to be kinder to each other and not talk about people. I mean, I think about that people, the people who sell drugs and how folks used to talk about them. I say I've given up on talking about anybody who sells drugs and any of the above, because our country giving money away to a person who not only been selling drugs but sell guns to the black market, and he's supposed to be using the money to help him out of the war that he said he's in. And now he's been out of shape because now the other childlike mentality that's coming out of Israel want money, and he wondering what happened to him. In other words, I'm over here. So you got all these people who want to have money, but somehow black people supposed to pull themselves up by their bootstrap. And you got Israel, one of the most sophisticated military operations in the world, who somehow need money from the United States along with Ukraine. And we supposed to just say, okay, when did the taxpayer sign on to that? Because I didn't.
Right.
So yes, we must do some things different. So we won't practice, or if we are practicing this mindset, we can move away from it because it's not helping us. And once we start moving away and teaching other people that this is not helping us as a whole unit, we're going to start seeing some changes. As I keep saying, everybody's going to have to pick a side. It's going to be justice, equality, and equity for everybody, or white supremacy is going to destroy itself and the world. But as they're destroying themselves, we can be prepared for what's next.
And another thing I was thinking about, like, when people are electing these politicians and they come up with these bills, hey, we're going to give this country 90 billion and we're going to give this country 50 billion. The questions they should be asking, or the question that they should be sending to their Congress people or Senate people is, okay, you're giving them this money. Are they going to pay us back, or can we be reciprocated in that same manner? And if the answer is no, it should not be happening.
First of all, I don't understand how this country gives money to any other country when we have homeless people on the street. Everybody on the street is that's been the running talking point Well, they shouldn't have done XYZ. Well, we didn't do anything to these people who running over here trying to get uh, over the border. We didn't. We didn't cause their government to fall. We didn't do any of that. But the United States have always given away money that does not belong to them. It's our money. And we have to start talking like that. You will not continue to give away money. It's our money. And therefore, we can tell them that while we're building our own. Because you're taking the money that we actually allow you to operate in through our taxes, and you're not a good steward because the United States government has never been a good steward. That is the reason why the Civil War ended, because they were losing money. Our government is horrible at everything that it does except kill us. Somehow it has mastered that. Every other day, I see where somebody has been killed by a police. And somehow, police can always find a way to bring other people in without injury. But if it's a black person, even black women, and I'm going, they have no respect for us. I don't care if we're male or female or whatever gender. I'm not going to leave them out. Whatever gender people say they are. If they got dark skin, they will get a good beat down.
Or a bullet.
Because they look at us the same way these politicians told Israel. Finish the job. In other words, they call the Palestinians subhuman and all of these different derogatory things. That's the same thing that the church said we were savages or we were not quite human. That's the same thing the Germans or the Nazis said about the Jews over in Europe. They call them names. But let me go a step further. That is the same thing Europeans said about the Irish. Mm-hmm. Now I can drop the mic. Because all of these people are chasing whiteness and trying to fit. And that's a spiritual problem. You're trying to fit into some type of power structure that don't even belong to you. It has always belonged to the elites. And the elites are the elites. There's no Democratic elites. There are no Republican elites. They're just elites who wish to run the world and keep the world at its beck and call. And if we can master that philosophy and keep operating on that premise, I believe we can get some things up and rolling a whole lot faster than what we've been doing. We just need better directions, better cooperation, and people who have the will to want to see this happen. That's it. Because if you have a desire to make something happen in life, nobody can really prevent you from doing it. Think about it when you were trying to slip out the house and go somewhere. Wait till your parents went to sleep.
Yep.
Slipped out the window. And when you thought they were coming back home, if they had left or they were asleep, you slipped back in that window. So if you have the desire and the determination, and desire and determination are spiritual disciplines, you can make things happen because that's coming from within you. It's not something you're trying to acquiesce to from the outside. That's harder work. The only thing we have to do is cultivate those gifts, those talents, those traits that we have within ourselves. As I said before, I'll say it once more before you sign off. White supremacy is going to fall. What are you going to be doing when it does? We have a lot of work to do because, as some of us know, and now I'm putting it out there in the atmosphere, the continent It's like Palestine. Most of the continent have young people. These young people don't have the resources or the education that some of us in the divided states of America have. And when I say don't have, the awareness or the education that we have, because under their regime, like the Palestinians, their every mood is is monitored. Just like our grandparents and our parents. They couldn't read because it was against the law. Or they taught history that had to do with Europeans, and it has nothing to do with all of the different people who walked the continent. I mean, we start talking about did you know, and I can just go back 100 years. Did you know a Ralph Branch, or did you know a Walter White? Most of the audience would say who. And those are two men who are responsible for Israel actually having what they call a nation state. Thank you, two black men. And these two men could have passed for white if they wanted to, but that wasn't their experience. That's why we need to understand what whiteness is versus what blackness is. It has nothing to do with color until it does. It has to do with the power to say, yeah, it is this color now, but it can also be this color here later, like the Europeans have done with the guys who come from what they call Hispanic areas. Some of these people are darker than probably some of you guys that's listening, but they can get to be white because white supremacy says so. And then they act like that they're white because they start talking really greasy to us and act like we owe them something. That's why these people are up in Chicago or in New York. And now people are just standing up and letting others know. We don't have to be nasty to you, but we're not taking your stuff no more. That's all we have to say. We've taken the disrespect for too long. It's time for it to stop. And that's how we have to end it. It's just time for it to stop because we say so. Now, if you want to disrespect us, you can do it in your home, your office, your whatever. But you won't do it, and I sit here and take it from you. That's all we have to do. That's all we have to say. We don't have to yell. We don't have to scream. We don't have to pull guns like the people who continue to kill people and somehow they manage to off themselves, or they get taken in and fed good meals. We don't have to do any of that because that's not our nature. We may hurt each other because somebody did something to us, but we're not going out being mass killers. I'm done, AJ.
Yeah. Yeah, you had a good one. You had a good one. You could actually probably do a part 2 if you wanted to.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping that I can reflect more so I can help our audience learn to understand what spirituality is by using concepts in the invisible realm to cause their imagination to reimagine. Because those are two principles that waiting on the church to teach, it breaks my heart that the church has allowed itself to be so worthless because we can use those communities to actually have a space where people can learn. I'm not saying that you go there so somebody can proselytize you into some certain tradition where you believe in other words, it can be people who are Muslims. As long as it's a space where we can learn about our own culture and we can learn how to work together, that's fine. It can be the Israel, what they call themselves, Hebrew Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to learn how to work together so we can be a better community, that's fine. I'm not with anybody trying to proselytize somebody to follow a particular doctrine because I know better, but I'm not trying to force what I know on people who continue to promote things that are not true. And I can say that and I will stand on it. It's not true. But I'm not trying to force people because they have to want to do that, especially if they are running what they call their church, because it's theirs. And if they don't want to do any different, that's okay. But the space can be better used for people who may not have any upbringing in any congregation or any mosque or any temple, and they just want to learn how to be in community. Because we don't know about our ancestors. I don't care if our ancestors came from the continent or over here. We don't know about our own ancestors. And I'm waiting for us to know that. Because when you start talking about the prior ancestor, if you're going to talk about Moses and whatever them other people are, aren't they, when you call those ancestors, because we don't see them walking around, and they've been gone more than 500 years, so they're not elders, they're ancestors. And if we're going to
And
talk
that's just
about the
looking at it
person
from a
they call
practical sense.
Jesus, but I'm simply saying why we can't learn about our own people and actually use that as our premise to be closer to our own culture.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get people to do.
Yeah.
Because they left us some roadmap because they had to figure it out as they went. They didn't have a roadmap, but they did have community, and they did love people. Even the people who were misusing them, they found a way to work with them. So we can just, we can shift gears and just learn how to reflect on ourselves, on our culture, and on our ancestors.
Yep. Yep. Man. Yeah. I think that's it, everybody. I want to thank Chaplain K for once again coming on and sharing with us again. I'll be happy to deliver the news that we have reached the 100 listener mark.
Yay!
So that is a very, very important milestone, especially when podcasting. That is a very, very, very important milestone. And so that's something to build on, and that's something that we're going to use to grow this particular platform. So
because as he said, it's about the chocolate life, but my particular part that I'm trying to help the audience do, and AJ can talk about it later, maybe, is to get us to see the spiritual dynamics within ourselves, because we're in a spiritual war. It's kind of hard to know you're in a spiritual war when nobody's ever taught you that white supremacy and saying this is white supremacy, and somehow to say your imagination kind of envision just as you call white people, that will be a false analogy. Specifically, when you see a lot of melanated people who are just as anti-Black as some people who are not melanated. So the concept is, how do we find the people in our own history who have shown us that we can really do this? Because we see a whole history of Europeans that spirit that they operate on, which is hatred. Hatred, vengeance, jealousy, all of those are spirits, and they hate the melanin not only on us, but in us. Because we got a different type of discipline in us who actually operate in, in a spirit of love, even though sometimes we know we don't want to love people. Throughout our lives and learn what we need to do. We're not trying to focus on them. They're always focusing on us. They have think tanks. I've mentioned that before, where they try to mimic our behavior. They steal our ideas, they steal our craft, and they sell it back to us. We can sell stuff to ourselves. We just have to learn how to be better stewards of what we're trying to do and do it. If our ancestors did it way back in Kemet, and they built the pyramid, and they built it with everybody working together. Now, that's some type of community. Because it was the pyramids were built by hand. I don't think nobody ever thought about that recently. That's community working together. Mm-hmm. And that's what melanated community look like when we are of one mind and of one spirit and of one unit. And we so far removed from that. We really are. So we're trying to work our way back to that kind of greatness because we have not seen it in 6,000 or 7,000 years. Mm-hmm. So that's a long ways to be working ourselves back to that kind of greatness, whereas the mindset that's in operation is very infantile, that it's just like little children. It's always fighting for attention or greed or a pat on the back. That is so draining. So they can have that. We don't need it. We don't.
So exhausting.
It is. It really is. Just to think about some of the stuff that, like, seriously? So this is what you guys are doing. But anyways, we can do this offline.
All right. All right, chocolate people. Until next time, be safe, be aware, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Peace out and be blessed.